Hey there, juniors. Hope the day is going well so far. On Friday of last week, we previewed colonization in the Americas. You will recall that there were two main reasons why other countries wanted to colonize the land after Columbus discovered it in 1492. The first reason was for the new land and resources. Settlers and explorers had heard stories of gold and endless land that was in the New World. Settlements and colonies would allow them to claim that land for their home country and access those natural resources that the New World provided. The second reason for colonization was to escape from religious persecution in Europe. The New World was a place that allowed for a fresh start for some and an opportunity to worship in whatever way they wanted to. You'll see later on in the lesson that the settlers of Jamestown were motivated more by land and new resources, and the settlers and pilgrims of Plymouth Rock in Massachusetts were more concerned with escaping religious persecution in Europe and worshiping in any way they wanted. Which brings us to our objective for today. Make sure that you copy down this objective at the top of your notes page in your composition book. Identify Jamestown and Plymouth and explain the differences between the two colonies. Feel free to pause this video to take a second to write down that objective. Before we get into the bulk of the lesson, I just want to go ahead and point out some important dates. This slide does need to be copied into your notes so you can remember these dates later on. In 1607, Jamestown is founded by English settlers. John Smith runs the colony to ensure its survival, as most of the settlers did not know how to farm or find food for themselves. In 1610, John Rolfe arrives at Jamestown with tobacco. Upon his arrival, he finds that only 60 of the original 500 settlers of Jamestown are still alive. Most of them have been killed off by starvation or disease. The tobacco that he brings gives Jamestown economic survival. It becomes their main cash crop and the backbone of American economy. In 1619, the first slaves arrived from Africa to begin working in the New World. It is likely that they began working on tobacco plantations. In 1620, Plymouth Colony is founded by the Pilgrims that travel over from England on the Mayflower. They're trying to escape religious persecution in England. Feel free to pause this video to take a second to write down all of these dates and the events that go with them. You only need to copy down what is on this slide. To give us more context about Jamestown and Plymouth, we're going to watch the first 10 minutes of America, the Story of Us, which is a great documentary that was put on by the History Channel. There will be questions along the way, so make sure that you are paying attention to the video and taking notes where you feel necessary.
Shiploads of businessmen and true believers are crossing the Atlantic Ocean to create a new world. May 1610, 120 years after Columbus, it's still a perilous journey. One ship, the Deliverance, carries a cargo that will change America forever. On board is John Rolfe, a 24-year-old English farmer, ambitious, self-reliant, visionary, a born entrepreneur. What takes us 6 hours today by plane was then a voyage of more than 2 months. 7 of the early adventurers out of every 10 will be dead within a year. But the risks are worth it. North America is the ultimate land of opportunity. continent of vast, untapped wealth, starting with the most valuable resource of all, land. What will be home to more than 300 million people lies under a blanket of forest covering nearly half the land, more than 50 billion trees. Further west, 9 million square miles of vast American wilderness. 60 million bison roam the plains. And underground, there are rumors of gems, silver, the largest seams of gold. The settlers expect nothing less than Eldorado. But what Ralph finds in the English settlement of Jamestown is hell on earth. More than 500 settlers made the journey before Ralph. Hello? Hello? Barely 60 remain. It's called a starving time. Having fed on horses and other animals, we had boots, shoes, and any other leather we came across. 3 months before Ralph arrives, a man is burned at the stake for killing his pregnant wife, planning to eat her. The English arrive unprepared for this new world, and unwilling to perform manual labor. Instead of livestock, they brought chemical tests for gold that they never find. And this is not their land. They built Jamestown in the middle of a Native American empire. 60 starving settlers among 20,000 of the Powhatan Nation, armed with bows and arrows that are up to 9 times faster to reload and fire than an English musket. They're soon enemies. Only 1 in 10 of the original settlers is left. John Rolfe didn't come to plunder and leave like the others. He's got his own plan. There's money in tobacco, and England's addicted. He's arrived with a supply of South American tobacco seeds, but growing it is limited to the Spanish colonies. The Spanish control the worldwide trade. Selling tobacco seeds to foreigners is punishable by death. But John Rolfe has got his hands on some. No one knows how. And in the warm, humid climate, fertile soil around the Chesapeake Bay, Rolfe's tobacco crop flourishes. The first large harvest produced by these seeds is worth more than $1 billion in today's money.
The great strength of America is the people. Want to know what is the defining strength of America? It is our people, our immigrant tradition, our bringing in cultures from all over the world.
I know what goes into making success, and when somebody's really successful, it's rarely luck. It's talent, it's brain power, it's lots of other things.
Rolfe marries the daughter of the king of the Powhatan Empire. Her name becomes legend. The Huntress. In England, Ralph makes her a celebrity when her face is put on a portrait that sells all over London, advertising life in a new world. expansions to come. England's rich invest money here. All of London knows about this land of plenty. Within 2 years, tobacco grows in every garden. From a living hell, Jamestown is America's first boom town. Later, nearly 1,000 more settlers arrived, including 19 from West Africa. Slaves. But some go on to own their own land in Virginia.
12 years after the founding of Jamestown, Africans were playing a shaping role in the creation of the colonies. That's pretty incredible.
30 years later, there are over 20,000 settlers in Virginia. America is founded on tobacco. For the next century and a half, it's the continent's largest export. After Ralph arrives in Jamestown, another group of English settlers lands in North America. They come ashore on a deserted beach 450 miles up the coast from Jamestown and call the place Plymouth, after the English port they sailed from. These are a different breed of settler, a group of religious dissidents with faith at the center of their lives. They made the dangerous Atlantic crossing seeking religious freedom in the New World. "24-year-old apprentice printer Edward Winslow arrives with a group of religious sectarians on a boat called the Mayflower. By April 1621, their settlement is taking shape. The Mayflower returns to England. The Pilgrims are on their own in an unknown land.
A great hope and inward zeal we had, of laying some great foundation for the propagating and advancing the gospel of the kingdom of Christ in those remote parts of the world.
There are 19 families, goats, chickens, pigs, and dogs. They have spinning wheels, chairs, books, guns, and no way home.
If you create this environment as a land of opportunity, then you're going to attract those type of people who want to take that risk, who want to take that gamble, and who believe in a better life.
They were heading for the Hudson River, but they've landed 200 miles further north at the beginning of winter. They have arrived in the middle of a mini ice age. Temperatures 2 degrees colder than today. Winters are longer, growing seasons shorter. The soil is poor, little grows, food supplies run low. In the first 3 months, more than half the pilgrims died.